Well, I'm starting to try and put the motor back together in preparation for the move outside and the start attempt. And looks like I solved one of the mysteries of the grounding wire. This must be the ground wire that runs from the starter ground terminal over to the case. I found this in the boat. This is all rotted out completely. That's completely garbage. So I'm going to want to replace that. I did find some more bolts. A lot of these bolts are just regular bolts. They weren't stainless or anything, so they really rusted really badly. So then I went and looked through. This is one of the ones I did have that is stainless from when I took the motor apart. I went through what I've got. All of these Allen head cap screws right here are all stainless. Unfortunately, the only ones I have that are that size are actually these, which are too short. I think they're going to be too short. So that's not good. I do have 3 of these screws here. Believe it or not, even though these look like they have rust on them, they're actually stainless. So, but they're not bolts. They're actually Phillips head screws. But I might still use these in a less critical area. Maybe even if I have to put a couple drops of blue Loctite on the threads. Why not just buy new bolts? Because stainless fasteners are crazy expensive in these parts. Well, probably in any parts for that matter. Stainless fasteners they're going to charge you a premium for them. Why not just use regular bolts? Well, because if you've ever had a regular bolt rust into an aluminum housing and had to deal with getting it out, then you'll know why. And actually, I've had stainless bolts that actually corroded into because the aluminum will still oxidize. But anyways, long story short, I want to use stainless fasteners, and I'm missing a lot of them. When I got this motor, as some of you may recall, it was already missing the starter, and all the shrouds and everything were pretty much already removed. So there's a lot of bolts missing. All right. Getting back to the matter at hand, I need to make up a new one of these, and also I've got the short one that's on the motor there that I do have, but that's also in bad shape. So I want to really replace 2 of these. Well, I had a nice long piece of copper wire in my junk pile, scrap pile of wire. I found this really long piece, and what you're actually looking at is it's completely stripped of insulation because I kept stripping it back to see if I could get to a point where there was no corrosion, and I never got to that point. The thing was corroded from end to end, even though the insulation was actually intact. It wasn't like this insulation that's already falling off, but what had happened was this wire must have been somewhere where it got really wet, and the corrosion migrated along the entire length of the wire. So that, believe it or not, is copper, but it's just got a lot of corrosion on it, so it looks a different color. So I was just in the middle of cutting back the insulation on this little jumper wire that I found in my pile of junk, and had corrosion visible here, not as bad as the other wire, but actually right about here it stops. So this looks like good clean copper wire from this point back, and I think that's going to actually work as a replacement for this cable here. Or at the very least, I can cut it back even further and make the other cable. So I'm going to get one replacement out of this. I'll use that crimp connector that's on there. So I need my big cutters. Well, just looked through all my electrical connections, and looks like I'm going to have to hold off on making this cable because I need something like the solder connector like this that'll fit onto here. But the problem is this hole is the same as this hole. In the original one, I've got a large hole on one end and there's a small hole on this end for that bolt that goes through the starter. This is the bolt that goes into the starter that the ground wire is supposed to attach to, and you can see that's not going to work. It's not going to make a good connection. So I'm gonna have to get the correct size for that. And then I guess I should put together a grocery list. I have no recollection of where I got these. Actually, that's not true. I think I may have got these when I was in the Army. But these are some sort of linemen's or electrical pliers that the reason why I know they're electrical is because right here they're marked US 5,000 volts. And there's an S with a line under it to denote who the manufacturer is. But long story short is I've had these for a long time, and these are some pretty darn good cutters. When normal dikes like these fail, these things always seem to come through for me. I know that looks short, but I just checked it. I'm going to double check it. Alright, it's a day later and I did a little bit of grocery shopping today, and I decided that rather than using this piece that I had salvaged last night, decided to go in another direction. This is 4-gauge wire, so when I went to the store today, I did get some 4-gauge solder connectors from Napa, so that would fit perfectly on there and flow the solder in there and I'd have a good connection. But what ended up happening was I realized I needed to make up another one of these, and I do not have any more 4-gauge cable around that's in good condition that I want to cut into. So, pardon me. So what I ended up doing was I was going to buy 2 more of these. These are 1/4 inch, so these are for the small end, and then I was going to buy 2 of these in 4-gauge for the other end. Now I did have that one connector, but I think we ended up figuring out that this isn't even a 4-gauge. This is actually the reason why I couldn't get this on last night really well. See, it barely fits on there, is because this is a 6. Also, I noticed afterwards that it almost looks like somebody started to crimp this. So maybe it started out its life larger, but there's actually a size difference there. Anyways, here's the point. I was going to buy 2 more of these and then buy, because they sell it by the foot, I was going to buy 1 foot of number 4-gauge wire in black and solder it all together. And the counter guy, he's a really good guy, he says to me, he says, well, do you want them with connectors already on them? And then he comes out with this. Okay. And so then I'm like, oh, well, okay. Yeah, I see what I can do here. Okay. If I want to abandon using this altogether, just use this, I can cut this where I need to and solder these on to the 2 ends and make 2 new cables out of this. Okay. So that'd work. But I said, well, yeah, but how much is this? He said, probably less than what it's going to cost for a foot of cable. So it broke down this way. None of this stuff is cheap, of course, because it's copper is the main ingredient, so to speak. It cost me $9.28 for this. These little puppies right here in copper are $1.53. Okay. These cost me $1.53 a piece, so 2 of them are $3.06 just for those. This little slice of heaven right here cost me $5.67. But he said that's pretty much what it costs for a foot of number 4-gauge copper cable. Copper is just so expensive now. Okay. So I decided to go with this. I have that much less work to do. And then I looked at these and I could see that these actually are copper, but they're copper and they're tin coated or something. So you can actually see the copper in there. So I think this will work out just fine. And I'll have a little bit less soldering I have to do. Oh, okay. And now, while I'm at it, I went to the hardware store because my local Napa doesn't have any stainless steel fasteners. Um, I went to my local Napa and I got some hardware. So here's one of my original bolts, and I got one just a tiny bit longer, but I know I'll be able to use that. And then I got, well, that's interesting. I bought 4 of these. Why are there only 3 in there? Don't even tell me I lost one. Aw. Probably fell out on the truck, on the seat. I'll go look for it. But anyways, I got the hardware here, and it cost me, let's see, 4 stainless steel nuts, 21 cents a piece. 4 of these bolts at 57 cents a piece. This one bolt was 75 cents. For a grand total of $4.11 once the tax is kicked in. Alright, so stainless steel hardware is not cheap. But who didn't know that? Now, ideally, if I had some of this heat shrinkable tubing of the correct diameter, I would have slid a piece of that over this, kept it up this end, and so that when I got done soldering, I could just slide it down over and hit it with a heat gun, and it would shrink wrap right around there and make a nice weather tight fit at that junction right there. Especially since invariably I end up damaging the insulation in the process of soldering it. Well, mainly because I'm using this big gigantic torch. What I really ideally should be using is I should be using one of those mini little butane torches. I do not have one, that's why I'm not using it currently. If I had one, I'd use it. So, check that that's a good connection. So I will wrap that with a piece of electrical tape. So there's the finished product taped up. Yeah, I'm not going to win any awards, but you know, it'll get the job done. Alright, try a different approach this time. I'm going to partially fill this cup with, I did pre-fill that cup with some solder, but I'm going to put more solder in this side, and I'm going to see whether or not I can't just, while it's hot, insert the cable in there and get it to bond. Of course, this solder is too thin also. This solder is for soldering components onto PC boards. But the only other solder I have right now is plumber's solder. I'd rather use this rosin core. Just went to grab some safety glasses. It just occurred to me I shouldn't be doing this without safety glasses on. If there was any moisture present in there, it could cause a hot bubble of solder to blast molten solder out of there and into your face. The humidity in this basement is so high that my safety glasses were fogging up and I was having trouble seeing what I was doing. So that, we'll call that experimental way number 2 to put these in. That's actually probably the better way to do it if you can be a little more careful about splashing excess solder out. I even get a piece of unmelted solder that's stuck to it now. Well, I can clean that off. Good enough. See, there's no void where this insulation, well, maybe a little bit there, but there's not much of a void now around that opening. The end result is that the conductors are more completely protected from the outside elements. So I got that one little blob in the back there, but that's not really in the way, so I'm not going to get crazy about it. Alright, I loosened up the front bracket here one last time. Hopefully one last time. Because I wanted to sort out this whole issue with the choke here. Figure out how this was all going to work. So here's what I ended up figuring. When I was taking this apart, there was a wire that came up to here. Okay, that went down to the main wiring harness plug. Okay, and then it terminated here. I broke it off there, or it was broken. And then I had this little scrap of wire coming up here, and I didn't know what this went to. And then this plunger right here that I could pull up has a scrap of wire hanging off of it right here. So I thought it looked like almost like this went to this, okay, which makes no sense. And the reason why I thought that was because I didn't have this top bracket in place, so I had forgotten about the electric choke. So this wire actually is supposed to go over to here to the electric choke. This, what looks like a wire hanging off of this thing right here, is actually not an electrical wire at all. What it is it's supposed to be a little cable, and it's so you can manually choke the engine. With the cover off, you can actually pull up on this pin right here, and this little piece right here is supposed to go down and attach somewhere. To make matters worse, can't figure out where the heck that plunger is supposed to. Oh, hold on, I think I may have just found it. Okay. Well, I could start by taking one of the remnants of this broken wire off of the electric choke. So here's the choke linkage. So essentially this is going to go up inside here. Okay, like so. And then the way this works is this has to attach. I believe that's going to attach in this hole right here. Let's see, how's this going to line up? Maybe not. It could go there. That's just going to fall out, so that doesn't seem right. Ah, okay. Alright, so the choke linkage here, this deal, this pin goes in a hole behind here from the back side. So in order to get this off, I had to take this off after I unscrewed this. So I'm going to have to, unfortunately, I'm going to have to take this butterfly off. Well, I might be able to loosen it just enough to sneak this behind there. And then this hole right here is where that wire is going to hook up. I'm going to make a manual choke cable out of wire. Now it occurs to me I never did actually test this choke. Draws more current than I thought it would. I think it just needs more power than my my little 3-amp power supply can supply. Let me try this old 10-amp battery charger that I have. Doesn't seem to be working. Oh, no, it works. It just thirsts for a lot more current than that battery charger wanted to give it.